This is Land of Havilah, Isaiah 20. It's very short, 6 verses, again concerning Egypt. The last chapter was hard to pin down, but this one's easy. The time of delivery is given, and the prophecy is very specific and names names. Verse 1. In the year that Tartan came to Ashdod, when Sargon the king of Assyria sent him, and he fought against Ashdod and took it, at that time Yahweh spoke by Isaiah the son of Amos. Comment from secular history, we know that Sargon II, king of Assyria, sent Tartan, one of his military officers, to Ashdod, which was a major city of the Philistines. The events are recorded in Sargon II's annals and in other Assyrian records. The year was 712 BC, which was during Isaiah's ministry. All the facts match up exactly with what Isaiah just said in verses 1 and 2, that he received this word from Yahweh in the year Tartan came to Ashdod and took it, Tartan having been sent by Sargon, king of Assyria, which, as we said, is easily identifiable as 712. In that year, Yahweh spoke to Isaiah, and still in verse 2, saying, Go and loosen the sackcloth from off your waist, and take your shoes from off your feet. He did so, walking naked and barefoot. Comment, so in 712, Yahweh told Isaiah to go around naked and barefoot, but he didn't tell him why. We shouldn't assume that naked in verse 2 means totally naked, because Isaiah could have worn something like a wrapping around his loins. Coming up after 3 years of this, Yahweh finally told Isaiah why. Verse 3, Yahweh said, As my servant Isaiah has walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder concerning Egypt and concerning Ethiopia, so the king of Assyria will lead away the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Ethiopia, young and old, naked and barefoot, and with buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. They will be dismayed and confounded because of Ethiopia their expectation, and of Egypt their glory. The inhabitants of this coastland will say in that day, Behold, this is our expectation, where we fled for help to be delivered from the king of Assyria. And we, how will we escape? Comment in verse 3, Isaiah's nakedness would be a sign and wonder. It was a wonder because the people of Jerusalem would wonder why he was naked. In their curiosity, they would ask, and Isaiah would tell them, I don't know. Yahweh told me to do it, so I'm doing it. Then after 3 years of that, Yahweh came forth with the explanation. So the nakedness was Yahweh's method of drawing attention to Isaiah and building suspense and finally publicizing the prophecy. By 712, Isaiah had already gained a reputation as a prophet to the kings of Judah, so he couldn't be ignored. And verse 3 calls it a sign because naked and barefoot was how, according to the prophecy, the Assyrians would lead away the Egyptians and Ethiopians captive, quote, naked and barefoot and with buttocks uncovered to the shame of Egypt, in verse 4. So simply put, the prophecy was that the Assyrians would invade and conquer Egypt, which meant that the Philistines couldn't depend on the Egyptians to save them from the Assyrians. The inhabitants of the coast in verse 6 are the Philistines. The coast was the coastal plain of the Mediterranean where they lived. In verse 6, the Philistines will say in that day, How will we escape? That day turned out to be 671 BC. The Assyrians conquered Egypt, and the Philistines were left without Egyptian protection. The Philistines would say, in effect, what are we going to do now, because we've been relying on Egypt to help us against the Assyrians, and now the Assyrians are leading them away naked. So that's the chapter, repeating that in 712, which was the year Tartan took Ashdod, Yahweh told Isaiah to go naked and barefoot. 3 years later, in 709, Yahweh attached a prophecy to it, and 38 years after that, in 671, the prophecy was fulfilled in detail. We haven't mentioned the details of the fulfillment yet, which are that after Tartan conquered Ashdod, the Philistines kept rebelling. For example, Ekron and other Philistine cities supported Judah's war against Assyria in 701. Then in 671, Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, conquered Egypt. Specifically, he defeated the city of Memphis and defeated Egyptian ruler Taharka, who was an Ethiopian. He carried away Egyptian and Ethiopian captives in humiliation, exactly according to verse 4, at which point the rebellious Philistines saw that Egypt couldn't protect them. So naturally they were thinking, according to verse 6, what are we going to do now? We're in rebellion against Assyria, and we've lost our one big ally. The listener can take his pick that either this chapter is a complete fake written after the fact, Or the other alternative is that Yahweh is legit and Isaiah was a true prophet. But if anyone says the prophecy is fake, he'll have to explain away all the other fulfilled prophecies. Isaiah 20 is next.